So, Harry, you've been speaking to Ian about his favourite thing in the world, that is Star Wars. How are you going to move the conversation on from Star Wars to your topic?
Okay, well, Star Wars is probably the biggest fantasy film franchise. Would you say?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
One of. What would you say is one of the biggest TV fantasy film franchises?
Well, of course, that would be Star Trek, Harry.
Yes. Okay. Number two.
Possibly, particularly at this moment in time. Are we thinking Doctor Who?
This moment in time, a very relevant TV show for today, or for the past 7 days, I should say, at the time of recording. Doctor Who.
Excellent. So I guess we'll be speaking about Doctor Who. So get the show started.
Well, he's got a new guest, time to put him to the test. So hey, what's the topic? We don't know, cause he never does research for this show. His name is Jason, he wants to talk to you about a topic you love or something you do. No two topics are ever the same. That might sound impressive, but they're all pretty lame. A conversation with
Hello, you're listening to A Conversation With, a podcast where each week I'm joined by a guest and we have a conversation on a topic of their choice. And this week we have our first ever returning guest. It is Harry Chappell from Beyond the Box Set, and also a podcast that we didn't mention last time he was on, Two Geeks, Two Movies. So stick around to the end and he'll fill us in a little bit more about particularly this second podcast that we've just mentioned. But hello, Harry.
Hello, Jason. Thanks for having me back.
A pleasure to have you back. So we're going to be talking about Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a run of topics that I actually know something about. So this is nice. It's
That's got to be nice and easy for you.
It's been relatively easy for me the last couple of episodes. So I feel like Doctor Who, it's come at a good time. We've had a Star Trek episode. We've had a Star Wars. It was only a matter of time. How ironic. It was only a matter of time until we had a Doctor Who episode. So I'm intrigued to see what you've got to tell me. Interesting that you've gone for 2 TV shows, because last time we spoke about Scrubs, and this time Doctor Who. Very different TV shows.
Very different. I don't think there's any overlap with actors, as far as I know. I'm trying to think of one now, but I don't think there's. It does mainly say British, so even if they're playing different nationality characters, it's often still British actors playing them.
Yeah. So
I must put a little disclaimer at the top. I'm going to be talking mainly about Doctor Who from 2005 onwards.
Okay.
Which I'm much more of an expert. Anything older than that, not so much.
Did you
watch? I know a few little facts and figures around the place, though.
Yeah. Did you watch much of the older stuff, or?
No, I've seen the TV movie with Paul McGann that came out in 97, I think it was.
Yeah.
That was all about something to do with the millennium and how time needed to go properly on the millennium or something. I don't know. It was, it was an attempt to reboot the series that failed. So.
And then they tried again, and it worked a lot better.
It worked very well.
So, okay, so, Mum, if you're listening, sorry, we're not going to be speaking about the old stuff. I know you love it, but we're just, it's a modern world. People listening to this, I'm assuming they're of the 2005 on generation. So don't tweet me. So, Harry, explain to us then, where did it all, I was going to say begin, but I guess I'm going to say re-begin. So we've just mentioned they sort of revitalized the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? Or what do you remember of that happen?
I remember a single trailer that looked very dark and exciting. And I didn't know what it was for. I knew the name Doctor Who. I recognised it as a thing, but I didn't really know what it was. And then when it came out, my dad sat me down and said, "Son," he said, "Harry, you're going to absolutely love this." Same as he did when he sat me down and introduced me to Star Trek. Just like, we're going to start watching Star Trek, whether you like it or not, and you're going to love it. And he was absolutely right. I was sold from episode 1. And I've been not been fully engaged ever since, but I've been on and off watching it. And yeah, it's one of my favourite TV shows, I'd say.
So it's interesting because on the last episode, when I was talking to Ian about Star Wars, he did ask me about this sort of perceived rivalry between different franchises. Particularly, we were talking Star Wars, Star Trek, but I get the feeling that you, like me, have kind of just grown up in a sci-fi's fine, it's all good. So
yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah.
We'll watch Star Wars, we'll watch Star Trek, we'll watch Doctor Who.
Yeah, I can love them
all the others as well. So it's interesting. Yeah, I'm.
Doesn't matter which one's better or which one makes more money or something. If they're all good fun.
Yeah, and I mean, there's obviously peaks and valleys on all of them. So there's bits that you're like, oh, I love this for this. Oh, not so keen on that bit. But this other show, oh, they do that really well. Okay, this could improve. Nobody's really knocking it out of the park 100% all the time, are they? So you saw these first, because he only did one series, didn't he? We haven't said who.
Eccleston.
Yeah, Christopher Eccleston. What did you think of him as a Doctor then?
Well, he was my first Doctor. He was great. He sold the character to me. The whole series really introduced Doctor Who very well to everybody. The first time you see the TARDIS, you have the exact same mystery around it as the companion Rose Tyler did, where it's just a box, and then he gets in, and eventually she gets in, and you see this wondrous shot where the camera just moves around the TARDIS, which they do at the start of every series with every new companion. But this was the one that millions up and down the country, it must have been, saw what the TARDIS was for the first time. And I didn't know it was a time travel show. And it was only at the very end of the first episode that, because you already seen it teleport around the place. It moved around London and stuff. But it was only the end of the first episode that it says, oh, and it also moves in time. It travels in time.
See, that's...
And then it shows you next time we're going to the end of the world. And it's like, oh my God, what a start for a series.
Yeah, so you've had quite a different experience than to me, because it's again, I feel like we're treading a lot of the same ground as last week's episode, because I was saying, I always knew Darth Vader was Anakin, like it was Luke's father, because I saw them in reverse order. I saw Jedi Empire, A New Hope, and similar with this, it's sort of, again, just growing up in a household where it was on. My mum was such a huge Doctor Who fan. I knew some of the Doctors. I knew what the TARDIS was. I knew the whole premise, concept. I've seen some of the older stuff, some of the really old stuff, the black and white stuff. So yeah. So I didn't get that, but it was probably for me, it was more, I knew the actor. Like, I've seen him in film, and now he's doing this role. Whereas any of the other kind of Doctor Who stuff I'd ever seen, that's all I knew that person. Oh, he was a Doctor. So it was more bringing it into now this is, I don't want to say relevant to me, but it's now sort of in my world where I'm aware of who people are, what they're doing, what's going on behind the scenes and stuff. I suppose I should ask this question. I didn't want to lead with this, but I'll ask now. Do you have a favourite Doctor?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you this to sort of lead with as well. I think that my favourite Doctor comes with, it might just be the time of my life that I was watching it, but I think it's David Tennant. I think he was built up so well, because you've got that whole first series where you're introduced to the show, and you're introduced to Rose Tyler, who is a great character, and then you're introduced to this where they first show you the concept of regeneration for all new fans. And then suddenly you get this new guy who's super charismatic. Rose, your favourite character, really likes him. All the other characters are still there. Like he's humorous. He feels younger as well. I mean, he is younger. He was just really good. He took the show to a whole new level, even though he was the only thing in the show that actually changed. Everything else stayed the same. Yeah,
and I suppose, like, looking at it now, from where we are now, looking back, he did have probably the easiest transition, because you didn't have a lot to compare him to. Christopher Eccleston did one season. That was it. So you could kind of be like, oh yeah, he was quite good, and now this new... Whereas anyone who came after, well, first they had to follow Tennant, which was tough. And then the more, each time that happened, you had more and more comparison. And I suppose we're not used to that kind of having the lead change so much in a show, are we? Like, generally, series is kind of fixed. These are the main cast, and as soon as somebody changes, you're a little bit like, not sure I really like that. I'm not sure. Well, I mean, Scrubs without JD. There you go.
Yeah, there it is.
How did that work for them? Not very well. So I think I'm probably with you on. I think he's probably my favorite as well. Also because, again, similar to you, like time of my life, I think I was still in the UK when he was doing it for a bit, and then I moved away, so I wasn't as. I kind of had to catch up on it after the fact. Watch most of the Matt Smith stuff later.
Yeah.
What do you think, or what did you think of Capaldi?
You're jumping out of order here.
Well, it's because I feel he's the most I don't say controversial, but maybe divisive.
Yeah, no, controversial. That's fine. Why do you think he's controversial, though?
I think there are people that just really didn't like him, didn't like his take, and then there are people that are like, I feel a lot of the older Who's are like, oh, yeah, we're used to kind of this older, grumpier Doctor, because that was quite often how he was portrayed. And whereas the modern fans, he was getting younger and younger and younger, and then suddenly this jump to an older, more kind of a bit more aggressive, a bit more angry kind of Doctor. Yeah,
personally, I did not get on with him at all. I found I was quite excited when he came in, because I feel like Doctor Who had just had one of its absolute peaks of best writing. They were just getting towards the end of Matt Smith's run, and generally Matt Smith, I feel, went down quite well. I quite liked him, even though, okay, I'm jumping all over the place now. When David Tennant left, I stopped watching for quite a while.
Due to outrage?
This was I don't forget why. No, I forget why. It might have been, I don't know, maybe I just went into sixth form, I think, and just didn't have time for it. I don't know. But yeah, I never got back into it until halfway through, like, Matt Smith's second season, in which the first episode I watched was one where there's a big twist revealed that sort of covers the last season and a half. And it was really obvious to me watching that one episode. And I kind of wish that I'd watched the last season and a half, because then I had this big build-up to it, and it'd been like, what? It would have been great. But yeah, then I feel Matt Smith's stuff just got better and better from there. And then they built up and they did the 50th anniversary on November 23rd, 2013. Yeah, they got David Tennant back, and David Tennant and Matt Smith had the episode together. They got John Hurt in as the incarnation of the Doctor that happened before Christopher Eccleston, when there was the whole Time War. And yeah, I feel like that was really great. Going from there was one more episode where Matt Smith turns into Peter Capaldi. Another great episode, I thought. And yeah, then Peter Capaldi got off to, I feel like, a bit of a good start, riding off the high of the last few episodes, and then he just went downhill.
Oh, see, I almost feel it's the opposite with him. Like, I feel the first season, when he was a bit kind of, wasn't even sure who he was almost, and it seemed like he was still trying to work it out. Like, it kind of happens like that generally the first episode or two, that they're sort of trying to figure out who they are almost. But it seemed to go for a long time. Like, I felt that I didn't like the sunglasses. That I thought was stupid.
I hated the sunglasses. That was his second season. They were the worst thing in the world. Whose idea was that? The thing is, it's not just the sunglasses. It all just got worse and worse and worse, until there was an episode where the episode starts, it's like in some medieval, like, tent or something, or maybe like a Roman Empire tent, I'm not sure. And then Peter Capaldi just comes in. He's lying down like Rose from the Titanic. He's lying down with clothes on, though, with a guitar, sunglasses. He's on the top of a tank, and the tank barges in through the wall, and he's playing electric guitar. What is going on there? It's just like the epitome of just an old man trying to be cool, trying to be down with the kids.
Yeah, but my biggest problem, I think, with season one is obviously a big feature of Doctor Who is, and really they're more or less as important as the Doctor. You can have a great Doctor, but if the companion's terrible, doesn't really, because they're getting a lot of screen time as good. I just could not stand it. Clara? It's Clara. Particularly in that scene, the first scene. Because she could not accept he had changed. She was like constantly, he's not my Doctor.
I don't know. Like, she took her time with it, and I feel like that was actually written very well.
Well, my issue with that is that if anyone should have been like, understanding what he was going through and how all of this was happening was her, because she had gone and seen every single incarnation of the Doctor and all the changes he'd been through. Do you know what I mean?
You know what? That's a good point. I don't think of it like that.
So she was set up to be like, I know this better than anyone, what he's going through. And she was just constantly like, oh, he's not mine. Just go then. Get killed by a crow or something. I can't remember what happened. It was so ridiculous.
Something like that, wasn't it?
So what is it then that you like about this show so much? I mean, we've gone through the kind of the Doctors. That's sort of the trappings almost. But
I think I like the variation, the production design, and yeah, the characters, the writing, some of the sci-fi plots in this. Some of them are outstanding. Some of them are just fine, and some of them are quite bad. But I think it's the ones that really stand out. That's what brings the show all together. So things like the first Weeping Angels episode with David Tennant and was it Martha? What was her name?
Yeah, I think it was Martha. With the Doctor, she was a.
The actress was a Freema Acumen.
Yeah, it wasn't. She was like an actual doctor, wasn't she? She worked in a hospital.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Tweet us in if we're wrong, but I think let's go with Martha. It's fine.
Oh God, I feel awful that I've forgotten this now. It's just in pop culture, Martha has such a big different meaning now.
Wow.
Her brother was Reggie Yates. It is Martha. It's got to be.
Tell me what it was about her then while I'm doing this.
Wait, what were we talking about? Why am I talking about her?
The Weeping Angels episode.
Oh yes, of course. Well, that one was great because mainly it didn't have the Doctor and Martha as the main characters in it. It's one of the rare episodes where somebody else is the main character, which is always nice. It's refreshing to do that.
Martha Jones.
Martha Jones.
Right.
But yeah, to have to introduce a really great villain that they're statues that can move, but only when you're not looking at them. It's terrifying. And it could be any statue.
Yeah.
Which is great, because then you walk around the city and there's a statue, and maybe it is, but you don't know because you're looking at it right now, so it's not going to move. It's just going to be a statue. What a great concept.
Yeah. And when because they showed up, quite often, they were a kind of a recurring villain of the show, and kind of every episode that they're in is nail-biting. It's really tense the whole time. And when they're like surrounding the TARDIS at one point, it's just... Yeah. I mean, So I kind of wanted to ask then, for you, is it the more sci-fi, like, dare I say, space episodes, or the time episode? Like, do you prefer if they've kind of gone back and you're like, they're in some period of history, that's interesting, or you prefer on another planet or modern day, but with some like extraterrestrial kind of threat?
They've all got their moments. So I like the Weeping Angels. I loved it for having such a great few concepts in there. Including a bit of time travel. Love a good bit of time travel, little paradoxes and, whatever else. On occasion you'll get like an episode where somebody goes back in time like half an hour ago and then they're interacting with themselves or something. Like the episode in season 1 where Rose saves her dad's life. That's a solid time travel episode. I really like the ones where they go back in history and look at an event. The best example of which is the most recent episode, in fact, the Rosa Parks episode, which let's not get into because I don't want to get into spoilers in this, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, so you thought that was a very good episode?
Yeah, I thought it was extremely well done. It was very, very powerful and educational, like to people who have no idea who Rosa Parks is, as they made a thing about one of the characters saying, wasn't she a bus driver?
Yeah.
To people like me, where I know some about who Rosa Parks is, but I still learned something from this episode. And that's what Doctor Who was originally supposed to be when it first started back in the 60s. It was supposed to be a sort of an educational show, edutainment essentially. And so it's good that it still does that from time to time. And of course that episode, Rosa Parks, is extremely relevant today, because I don't know if you heard about what happened on a Ryanair flight recently?
No, maybe not.
I don't know the full details, but I think it was pretty much the exact same thing.
Oh, really? To give up
that somebody had to give up a seat or something, but this don't know the race, but a non-white woman was shouted at by staff.
Oh, wow.
I really should have looked into that more before talking about that on a podcast. Yeah. But look it up yourself.
Yeah, allegedly all this happened. We cover ourselves.
But yeah, so well, Doctor Who remains to be relevant, which is very important.
Yeah, so I watched that episode last night. I see what you're saying on all of those points. I suppose I didn't hate it. I didn't find it the most engaging episode, probably because I do prefer the more kind of fantastical elements to it. So I like it to be a little bit more. I guess it's just, I think, as I've said on this show a couple of times when we talked of different subjects, the fact that it is so relevant and so kind of like these are events that are happening, and things, that's not always what I want to entertain myself with. When I want to kind of long day, let me sit down and just watch something and distract myself. And then if it's kind of quite heavy-handedly going like, look, these are things that have happened. And that was probably the most sort of, I don't want to say traumatic part, because obviously, I've not experienced any of that kind of racism or hatred in my life. But when you saw somebody out of time, like having to go back, because while things may not be perfect now, clearly they are a lot better than they were back then. But that kind of him having to deal with being in that situation was quite terrible sort of thing. Which, but terrible because it's real, as opposed to terrible because it's like, oh no, this monster's going to get you. Does that make sense? So
yeah.
Anyway. But I suppose scary
for entirely different reasons.
Yes, I suppose we've started talking a little bit about it. So let's just go on. What do you think of the new Doctor? The new, I don't want to say new direction, but it's sort of a
there is a new direction in that the show has been completely redone. So for the last two Doctors, Stephen Moffat was the main writer of the helm, and the production crew were largely the same. And then this one, they've changed it up completely. So they've got new writers, a lot of new production crew, and then obviously a new Doctor as well. And so far, I think the show's going really well. I think Jodie Whittaker herself, she's great as a Doctor. I don't think there's been enough time for her to yet prove herself as a good or a bad Doctor. Every actor who steps into this role, they do need a few episodes to sort of get into the role.
Yeah.
And with almost every Doctor, you hate them for the first episode, maybe even two, because they're not your favourite.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we were saying right at the beginning, that you've got now such an amount of media to pull from, that you could, that anytime they do or say something, they're just trying to emulate Matt Smith, or they're just trying to do, that's very Capaldi doing that. That's very, and it's that kind of, how do you make it your own, but at the same time be this same character, but be different enough that people aren't just going to just say, well, you're just trying to do an impersonate this Doctor, but not so different that people then say, but this doesn't feel like the Doctor. It's probably one of the toughest roles I think you can inherit, because you do have, if you're like James Bond is the other character that springs to mind as somebody that's been recast multiple times.
Again and again, yeah.
But he's always cast as the same person. Like, he's supposed to be the same James Bond. It's not that he even though every actor played him slightly different, he's still the same spy, kind of. Whereas this, it is supposed to affect their personality and their taste, how they talk to people and how they act. There is supposed to be, and how they dress, yeah. Oh, I don't like her outfit.
I've got mixed feelings about it.
I don't like that the trousers are just slightly too short, like...
Yeah, my housemate is exactly the same. She can't take her seriously when her ankles are in shot.
Yeah, and then when she took off her jacket in the last episode, my wife was like, "Oh, I can't believe she's got like the suspenders. They just look really like."
Oh no, I like that. I'm alright with this one's costume. What do you think of the other four Doctors in the new series?
So costume wise, so what we had, Eccleston had just like a leather jacket,
pretty much. Like a black t-shirt.
I was going to say it was a t-shirt, wasn't it? Like t-shirt, jeans, and jacket, which I think suited him and was good to be quite low-key, kind of, because especially when he first turned up, he wasn't supposed to stand out, or he was kind of very under the radar. And so you were surprised to find out that actually he's an alien and can do all these incredible things. I liked Tennant's sort of a pinstripe suit. Not sure about the shoes. Well, he was wearing like Converse All-Stars or something like that, wasn't he? With a suit. I probably didn't really like Matt Hook very much.
Mm-hmm.
Not a fan of bow tie.
Well, that's your opinion.
Yeah, they're for children, but that's my opinion. So. My 5-year-old, he looks great in a bow tie. Me, never going to wear one. And I actually quite liked Capaldi's, the kind of, it like a longer, his was quite formal, but still, it was that kind of old look, was it? Which, I think they were trying to invoke that of
definitely, because there's a lot of chalkboards in his series.
And I did quite, and that's what I liked about his run, was I did like that element of it. But, yeah, and now this one, and I feel that this is the almost quirkiest costume of the new ones, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this costume. Like if you look at, Christopher Eccleston's the simplest. David Tennant had a few different options on his. I think the most identifiable thing would be that very long coat that he'd wear.
Oh yeah, like almost a, was it a trench coat? It was pretty much a trench coat, wasn't it? I was like,
I think so. Yeah. But yet David Tennant's never felt like they were trying too hard to make a costume.
Yeah, I feel like the others, if they were walking down the street, you'd see them, you might take note, but you'd never turn back. Does that make sense? Like, they'd walk past you, and they didn't look so out of place. I mean, obviously, depending on the time period they were walking down the street. But hers is a little bit more, like, grabbing your attention, and you're sort of like a little double take on those trousers. And you I really can't get over that. That's the thing that...
I reckon they'll change that for the next series.
Especially in that last episode, because she was standing on a bed. So she was also like high up. What is your opinion of the costume? You said you don't mind it. If you were to change it or tweak it slightly, what would you do?
I don't know. I think I quite like it. I know I'm not good at making costumes, so I can't really give any opinions on changes for that.
So if someone is listening and they're not following Doctor Who at the moment, how would you recommend somebody gets into it now? Would you say just start from this season, or would you say go back?
Absolutely. I'd say just start from this season. I'd say this season's got a new enough direction that it's not relying on knowledge of all the seasons, all their episodes. I mean, it will do at some point.
Yeah.
There will be callbacks. But until then, I'd say this is a pretty good entry point.
Yeah. I feel it hit a point now where there is so much that you just the thought of going back is sort of that's a big commitment you've got to make to try and watch everything now.
Yeah, because this is now like season 11 or 12 of New Who, let alone the past 50 years.
Right. Well, I feel we're hitting the time mark where I should ask you to take over the conversation and start leading this and asking me some questions, or at least coming up with some better questions than I had. So what do you want to ask me about Doctor Who?
Okay. So when did you first start watching it?
So the new stuff, I remember, as you watched the first Christopher Eccleston episode the night it aired. On so weird now just to watch it like when it actually was on TV. Like, I need to watch this at this time, and if I miss it, I miss it. So and then before then it was more just I remember seeing the odd episode sort of here and there, maybe in my grandparents' house or maybe at home, because my mum found it and she'll watch, because she'll still go back and watch old episodes of Star Trek, Doctor Who, any of these things. She's seen them all, but if they're on, she'll just watch them. She's just like, oh, I like this episode. And sometimes you're like, even sorry, Mum, I know you're probably one of the only people that does listen, but even with like murder mystery shows, and it's like, but you know who did it, right? Yeah, but I just enjoy watching them like get there again. Fair enough.
No, I'm the same. I last night watched Murder on the Orient Express for the second time.
Is that the new one or the?
Yeah, the new one. It's still fun.
Yeah, but, I mean, if you've seen that, it's like literally the episode will start of like Columbo, and she'll just see the title cards. And be like, oh, this is the episode with Leonard Nimoy. He's a surgeon. Yeah, he hides the thing in his hair. And I'm like, why are we watching this? It's not even been done yet, and you're already telling me how it happened. Okay. So yeah, I just remember sort of coming across it, that particularly because I think I might be wrong. I'm now calling back a memory, so might be wrong. But in old Who, very often like the battle and things that would go on would happen in similar location to be where they film a lot. Yeah. And quite often they would be in a quarry. He'd be like sliding down all these stones. And
standard basic sci-fi action set.
And I have a feeling that the quarry was quite close to where my mum grew up and where my
Oh, really?
grandparents lived. The quarry over there. Okay, so I just have these weird memories of stick in my mind. Particularly, now I've got to remember, who is my mum's favourite doctor? The one with the long scarf.
Tom Baker.
Tom Baker, yeah. And I just remember him sliding down these stones and having to use his scarf to like lasso a tree and climb out. And I know that I was standing in the sitting room, my grandparents' house. This was on the TV. My mum was watching it. It's just burned into my mind, this scene, for some reason.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's my life, guys.
What would... Well, actually, I've got a question. So I recently wrote I regularly write pub quizzes.
Yes.
And I need to do one now, actually, as soon as I finish this. Last week, I did a round on Doctor Who.
All right.
Do you want us to go through it? It's only 5 questions.
I'm scared to do this, but yeah, go on then.
Okay, so question 1. Which actor held the role of the Doctor for the longest time before they cast somebody else?
Is this only New Who, or is it...
Of all time.
Of all time? It was Tom Baker.
Final answer?
Yeah.
Tom Baker? No, it was Paul McGann.
That's probably way off. Yeah.
Who refers to himself as the shortest and longest Doctor.
Yeah.
Because he only had the one episode, and a minisode later, but and he held the role for 9 years.
Yes. Yeah. That's feel cheated, but okay, you're right. I should have listened better to the question.
People don't like my pub quiz.
No. All right. I feel better about getting this wrong now.
Okay. Question 2. What date did the first episode come out?
Oh, again, are we getting all?
Oh, the very first episode.
Was it pre-60? Slightly. I want to say it was like. How specific a date do I need?
The exact date.
Oh, forget it.
I'll give you half a point if you get the month and year.
I'm gonna say November, and I'm gonna say 58.
Care to take a guess at the date as well?
12.
No. Well, I did already mention that it started in the 60s earlier in the episode.
See, I know you did, but I felt like, but was it a case of, because I know there was the old black and white sort of the very first, and then a little bit of a gap before the next one started. And I was thinking, was it a slight kind of overlap? Is it like late 67?
No. So I did also mention that the 50th anniversary episode came out on the 23rd November in 2013. So it was 1963.
All right. Well,
so you got November.
I got November, yeah. I had a feeling. I don't know why.
You can have a third of a point.
Great.
Okay, question 3. Who played the incarnation of the Doctor known as the War Doctor?
Oh, you literally said it earlier.
What actor? I think I've said all of this.
Yeah. John Hurt? Oh, it's definitely something.
Final answer?
Yeah.
John Hurt? John Hurt, it is.
Good. Do you know when you're suddenly going blank because you're like, it is Leonardo DiCaprio, isn't it? It's not like his name's slightly different. Leonard DiCaprio. No, it's definitely Leonardo. It was that kind of moment for me. Okay, 1 point, finally. Yay.
And 1 and a third points. So question 4. According to a public vote on imdb.com, who is the most popular Doctor?
David Tennant.
Okay, sure. Yeah, you got that. That's actually... So David Tennant's got over 2,100 votes. Then it's Matt Smith with 700. And then Tom Baker with 400.
Oh, well done, Mum. You're in good company.
It's a very big jump, though.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the final question. What is the Doctor's home planet?
Gallifrey.
Wait, so you got 3 and a third points.
Yeah. Well, to be honest,
not too bad.
The ones I got wrong, I feel are justifiable.
So yeah, my trick question and the specific date.
Who's done the most seasons?
Tom Baker.
All right. Okay. So again, that wasn't a wild guess. That was...
No. Yeah, you weren't a million miles off, but yeah. So who do you think? Oh no, sorry. What was the episode that scared you the most?
Oh.
Were you ever scared by an episode? Like actually scared?
I don't think so. I think there are like jump scare moments that stand out, but not like really. I'm probably just not that committed. I probably don't pay enough attention when I'm watching things. But I do. I think one of the episodes that really kind of there was that like moment was a Weeping Angel, because they were always quite tense. But I think it's the one where they are sending them back to like that hotel in New York.
Oh yeah.
And they kind of get through it all, and they get right to the end, like finally, and then grabs the hand just grabs her. And there's also, because I think there's also when River it's the same episode that she has to break her wrist to get out of it. And it's again like one of those moments where they're just there, and then suddenly just grabs her, and those little moments are quite like But Cybermen can be quite scary as well, just because of the kind of the concept of getting turned into a Cyberman is quite horrific, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Like it's not just like being disintegrated by a ray. It's sort of more, we're just going to repurpose your body. And so, yeah, that's one where you can maybe think too much about it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one that stands out for you? You're going to tell me the most terrifying episode of Doctor Who imaginable?
Yeah, there's a couple. So the first Weeping Angels one was a little bit scary. I found it was a Peter Capaldi one actually, where he goes to like an orphanage or something, and they're all scared of this terrifying thing that nobody can see, and they don't even know if it's real. And there's a point where someone says, for all we know, this could just be one of the children just playing tricks on us. And there's nothing in the episode that tells you that it's not just a child playing a trick on them, but the episode is made in such a way that it is terrifying. I remember watching it with my two housemates at the time, and one of them the whole thing was just so tense, and one of them just in the middle of nowhere, and it wasn't even a scary moment, she just had to let out this blood-curdling scream, and it made the two of us just jump out of our skins. But I think that for me, the scariest episode that I had was in season 1, so when I was probably when I was at my youngest while watching this. It was a 2-part episode. I forget what it was called, but the ones that it was in World War II, where this kid gets a gas mask stuck to his face, and he keeps going around saying, "Are you my mummy?"
Yeah.
And that one,
that is quite creepy.
Oh dear, that one.
Isn't that they first introduce
Jack Harkness?
But no, I remember, and then they get like you see the mask like fall on their face.
Yeah. Oh man, that was horrific. That episode.
Yeah, there is something about that, like the whole mum thing, like the "Are you my mummy?" kind of. It's just, and it being a child, that it's just slightly more kind of creepy than if it was just a grown human saying something like, more your kind of classic zombie trope than having a child. And it's just sort of, they know what they're doing. Well, they did. We'll see if they still do.
So that was that. Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about that now.
Yeah. Well, to get your mind off that, Harry, we always like to end the show with some questions without context. And I've actually seen that one of these questions, very fitting for your topic. So that's coincidental, but we'll go through a few questions if you've got time to answer a few. So we'll start with Ian from Hoff Topics, who was last week's guest actually. He just asks, what's the perfect food and or beverage for fall? What's he saying?
The perfect food and or drink. Ooh. Okay, well, I just had a bowl of stewed apples for breakfast, which I think is a very autumnal food. But I feel like an autumnal food the perfect one needs to be a hot dish of some kind.
Yeah.
I think probably some kind of soup, but it's got to be a hot soup when you're outside, like walking up a hill or something, or just outside doing something in the autumn weather, the sun shining through some golden trees, and then you eat this hot vegetable soup or something.
Okay,
that's probably the perfect meal.
I was going to ask, because you're saying like walking up some hills, I was going to say, is this like a thick soup that you need a spoon and it's got big chunks, or are you in the cup drinking kind of soup? So we're going for a thick.
Yeah, my thick, chunky soup.
Which almost is the answer for both food and beverage at this point. So
kind of is. Beverage, I would say. Is it too early in the year to have mulled drinks like mulled wine, mulled cider?
I feel like it is always too early in the year to have mulled wine. Leave the wine alone. Just give me normal wine. That's my...
Okay. That's for you, but whatever. Mulled cider, I think, is a very good choice. If not, then hot chocolate with Baileys.
Okay, yeah, I'll have that one with you. So we can get a hot chocolate and Baileys, no problem.
Sprinkle some marshmallows on the top.
Yeah,
just beautiful.
Do what you want to it, as long as you don't mold my wine. I'm fine. He also asks, what's one extreme sport you'd try?
One extreme sport I'd try. Skydiving?
Yeah, you'd try that.
Yeah, is that a sport?
It's definitely extreme.
Yeah.
I'll allow it. Yeah, okay. So here's a question he asked, which isn't the one I was thinking of when I said there's quite a fitting question, but I feel it's also relevant. How would you describe a blender to a caveman?
Sorry, how is this fitting to Doctor Who?
Oh, time travel.
Okay. How do I describe a blender to a caveman? So assuming they can speak perfect English.
I imagine you've got your TARDIS that is...
Brilliant. Okay. Oh God, I don't know. Well, I could Can I just describe it? Can I show them?
Yeah.
Not show them the blender, but I could like get out a knife and a chopping board. Like they might have like sharp stones. I could say, look, here's a sharp stone, here's a knife. This is that progression. Look, watch me chop up this tomato and dice this tomato, and it turns out into a mush the more I chop it, and then I could do it faster by then putting it in a blender, turn the blender on, and it just does it pretty much straight away. And then you can make whatever you want with that. Just put it in a pastry, put it in the oven. Lovely. You got yourself a pasty.
Very refined caveman.
And a very awful pasty recipe as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm thinking of.
So, our dear friend Carlisle, who provided the intro music for the show.
I was going to ask.
He asks, or he states, I should say, paleontologists are now pretty confident on what killed the dinosaur, but they'd become socially mute and unmotivated a few million years before that. So I want to know, what killed the dinosaur's spirit?
Okay. Off the top of your head, you don't know how old dinosaurs are? Because maybe it was just boredom.
Yeah.
Maybe they've spent millions of years just doing the same thing again and again and again. So they're just like, I'm done with this. I'm just falling back on just instincts now. Can't be asked to do anything. You know what? Maybe that was it. Maybe it was just politics. That they couldn't agree on anything. Borders were breaking down. There was racism happening, and then someone said, right, that's it. No more thinking, just instincts, and then there's no more blame.
No podcast.
Yeah.
No streaming services. They just couldn't fill their time. Okay.
Yeah, I reckon that's what it was. It's politics.
All right. Dante from Let's Get Contextual. This is the one that I'd said was quite relevant. Would you rather go 500 years into the future or past, and why?
See, 500 that's throwing me off. If you said 100, then I'd be like, oh well, the past, definitely. As long as if I can get back, then yeah. Because I'd love to see like places I know now 100 years ago. Because they'd still be vaguely recognisable. But 500 years ago, I don't know.
I mean, where would you charge your phone? First of all, that would be the...
Oh, well, you get yourself a solar-powered battery hut before you leave. You'd be all right then. I mean, getting signal's going to be a nightmare, but,
Yeah.
Am I allowed to come back?
I mean, he hasn't specified, so, yeah.
What are you saying?
I'll let you come back.
Okay, so I get one trip out, one trip back. In that case, the future.
Just going to grab as much future tech and come back with it.
Yeah, future tech, future knowledge. I mean, you haven't specified how long I'm gonna be there, so I might spend like a year or two out there. I don't know, but then I know that I can always come back. I've got my friends and family here, so I've got something to come back to.
Okay, then I will add the caveat of you can come back, but you will be missing the amount of time you stayed there. So if you're gone for 2 years, you come back 2 years later.
Still doing it.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I'll take 2 years out of my life just to go to the future.
And then you come back and you're like, because I just invented this.
Yeah. I spent my time making this iPhone 15.
Yeah. It's almost the same as the iPhone 10 that you remember. But we removed even a port to charge it. So now you just have to swing it around in the air. That's... Right. Another question about fall. These American guys are obsessed with autumn. I thought we were the weather-obsessed nation, but apparently not. I'll jump that. Oh, what is the ideal place to take a vacation or a holiday?
Oh, I think did you ask me this last time? Or was it somebody else?
It wouldn't have been me, because last time you were on, I didn't have these questions.
Because normally my default answer is space.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was Charlie Dudley on Why Did I Do That? He asked me, where's your favorite holiday destination? Space. That's the one place I want to go. I think that'd be a great vacation. I mean, so relaxing, amazing views. There's no gravity bearing down on you.
Yeah. Be a few inches taller when you come back. That would be nice.
Yeah, exactly. How relaxing would that be?
Yeah. It's like when you come back and everyone's like, oh, you've got a really good tan. You'll be like, yeah. I was sitting in front of the sun for a while and then I was, you look taller. There's been no gravity compressing my body. That's does sound like a good destination. So last time I started reading some of Phil's questions. There were so many I couldn't get through them. I've got a couple more from the same post.
He does the same for my podcast. It's goddamn annoying.
But don't stop, Phil. We need them. Which came first, chicken or the egg? Let's solve this once and for all.
Okay. The egg. Because the chicken will have evolved from a different animal. And so at one point we would refer to it as something that's not a chicken anymore. that will one day be a chicken, and its children will be chickens or its grandchildren or something, but it will still be laying eggs.
Okay.
So I think that the egg came before the chicken. In fact, didn't some dinosaurs lay eggs?
Well, I assume some did. Yes. Yeah. I've
Well,
seen Jurassic Park. They find
yeah.
eggshells. That's how they know.
Exactly. Well, in fact, there's dinosaur birds, aren't there? And they lay eggs, and they're not chickens. So the egg came first.
Okay, Phil. He is saying the egg came
definitively.
first. I'd love to know what you think, Phil. So, here's a question he's asked, but I know the question almost at this point. Why did you agree to do this podcast and not mine?
Wait, sorry. Initially, you said these questions were
for any guest.
For any guest for any topic.
For any guest for any topic. So
okay,
he's just assuming it's somebody
that he sends you.
Yeah. He's just assuming that whoever I've got has refused to be on his show.
Well, you know what? I might refuse now.
So I know you were scheduled to be on there. You'd already told me that, but yeah. Phil, you might have lost your guest. Let's finish up with this one. Very fitting before you segue into the plugs and tell us about your podcasts. Favorite all-time movie and why? I hate these kind of questions because I can't answer them.
See, this one, I don't know. I've been thinking a little bit more about some of my nostalgic movies, like Forrest Gump and The Lion King. So I watched The Lion King recently because I'm doing a podcast on it in a couple of weeks, a game show podcast, in fact, so I need to just brush up on my Lion King facts. And man, that one really brings something out in me. Forrest Gump, last time I watched it, I pretty much cried the whole way through. And I think I need to sit down, I need to watch Lion King, I need to watch Forrest Gump, and I need to watch Iron Man, and I need to decide which of those three is my favourite.
Iron Man is kind of sitting out there on its own a little bit in that list.
Last I checked, it was Iron Man was my favourite.
Yeah, all right.
And it's because it's a film that I know inside out. The film brings so much excitement for just itself and then everything that's going to precede it. I do get quite emotional about it in a very positive way. I'm not crying all the way through it like Forrest Gump, but at points where you're supposed to be like, yeah, I am. Even though I've seen it, loads of times. So,
well, I mean, if they ever do a re-release, we'll get them to put that on the box. It's sort of, at moments when you're supposed to go, yeah, you will.
You will.
High praise from somebody who knows. So
it's between those three.
It's between those three. Okay. Well, we'll wait to hear back from you after your binge session of those three movies in a row. I don't know if you're going to take it, honest, but we remember your story of watching Scrubs from the last time you were on, and that was traumatic. That was traumatic enough. So I said that segues nicely into podcasts. So you've got two. Beyond the Box. I was going to say Two Guys, Two Movies. It's Two Geeks movies. Mm-hmm. Get it right. Get it on brand. So tell us about your podcast if people want to hear more from you.
So Two Geeks, Two Movies is a podcast where me and my co-host Ross, we pick two movies that have quite a similar plot. Two movies as similar as possible. For example, Deep Impact and Armageddon, which are virtually the same movie. They came out in the same year. Ants and A Bug's Life, like two very similar movies with a very similar plot, came out in the same year. We don't always do same year movies, but we do try and make it similar. So we pick two movies like that. We break them down. We talk about their similarities, differences. We review them, and we also try and give a synopsis to both movies without specifying to either movie, which can be good fun.
So I feel like I saw a trailer for something the other day, and I immediately thought to myself, wow, this seems very similar to a trailer I've seen for something else that's coming out around the same time. And my immediate second thought was, I wonder if Harry's seen this and if he's aware. So now I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to go back and find out. I'll tweet you when I remember what it was. But that was my immediate thought was, here's another one. Here's a very modern one. Let's see. Excellent. And then the Beyond the Box Set you told us about last time, but that's where you do your...
So for that one, me and my co-host John, we pitch prequels, sequels, and spin-offs to films that don't have any. So for example, we talked about Titanic, we talked about Forrest Gump, we talked about Lion King, but obviously that's got loads of sequels, so we're not going to do that. But like if they were to make Forrest Gump 2, what would happen? It's, not saying they should. That's kind of the point. They shouldn't. But
And also the fact that in your podcast you specify if they were remaking it today, which means actors that have passed away cannot be used, actors that have aged out or maybe fallen out of favor with Hollywood for certain reasons. You're going to have to get around that. So it's a lot more involved, I'd say, than simply, oh yeah, we just do this. This is the obvious progression, because maybe the obvious progression isn't quite possible anymore. So
exactly, yeah, it's not always what would happen.
Yeah. Okay. So there will be links in the show notes if anybody wants to head on over to check out either of those shows, as well as some of the social medias linked to them.
They're both available on iTunes, Stitcher, and all good podcasting platforms. Just search Beyond the Box Set or Two Geeks, Two Movies.
Yeah. So wherever you're listening to this, probably in the same place you can find it. I'm almost certain. And probably in places where you can't find it. So let's add that as well. If you want to hear more from me, you can always head over to Getting to Know Who, listen to the Game Show podcast over there. And if you're listening to this the day it's released, it might be that while you're listening to this, I'm actually recording a new episode with Harry for Getting to Know Who as well. So if I finish writing the questions, that's something that might happen. So it sounds like both of us have got some questions to write this afternoon, Harry. So
yeah.
But for different things. He's not writing the questions for the show. That would be an unfair advantage on his part. And you know I like the rules. Again, in the show notes, you can find links to my Twitter and Instagram and everything else that I'm doing on this show, other shows, and potentially new shows as well. So thank you again for joining us, Harry, and we'll see everybody next week.
Well, thanks for having me again. Bye.